Hey SAT students, this is Scott from PengPrep.com. Welcome to video 1 of Collins. If you haven't already, please go watch my videos on leveling and non-essential clauses first before watching this video. I'll be building off of the concepts that we learned there. If you recall, colons can be used as both level 1 and 2 punctuations, but only under specific scenarios. So what are those specific scenarios? Well, a colon can be used as a level 1 punctuation when it introduces a list or a thing. For example, Sky can only eat 3 fruits: apples, grapes, and strawberries. The colon here is being used to introduce a list of fruits which Sky can eat. Second, there is one legendary skill that is yet to be discovered: waking up right before your alarm rings. Here, the object that's introduced is the skill, waking up right before your alarm rings. Let's try a problem together. Please pause the video, read it, then listen to my explanation. Since we're learning about colons, it's obvious that the answer is a colon, but imagine that you received this problem without context. Since there's no adverb and no non-essential clause next to the blank, you would think you need to use the leveling strategy. So we will approach this problem like a leveling strategy, and in the middle, if we notice that the context specifically calls for a colon, then we will override the strategy and choose the option that contains a colon. The first piece is from her canvases to subject. The second piece is from herself to color. The first piece is an independent clause while the second is a non. So the required punctuation level is a level 1 plus 0 equals to a level 1 punctuation. Now we go through the options. A shows a colon. A colon can be a level 1 or 2, so it could be correct. B shows a semicolon. It's a level 2, so we cross it out. C shows a comma. It's a level 1, so we keep it. And D shows a level 0, so we cross it out. So we're left with two options, A or C. This is when you check whether the context specifically calls for a colon. If there is a list or an object that's being introduced significantly, then a colon is the best option. If not, then we go with a comma. Here, there is clearly an object that's being introduced, herself. So the colon is better and A is the correct answer. Let's do the same with the next problem. Imagine that you're given it with no context. There's no adverb or non-essential clause next to the blank, so this is a leveling problem. Now the first piece is from her collections to forms, and it's an independent clause. The second piece is from work songs to rural preachers, and it is a non. So we are looking for a level 1 plus 0 equals to a level 1 punctuation. Going through the options and matching the punctuation levels, we can narrow down the options to B or D. Reading the second sentence, we see that it significantly introduces a list: work songs, ghost stories, and spoken sermons. So the context calls for a colon and D is the best option. The next one's a bit trickier. Give it a try. Again, there's no adverb nor a non-essential clause next to the blank, so we consider this a leveling problem. Now the first piece is from by 1925 to secure, and it's an independent clause. The second piece is from an exclusive to tungsten, and it is a non. So we need the level 1 plus 0 equals to a level 1 punctuation. We can narrow down the correct option to C or D, a comma or a colon. And here, an object is being introduced significantly, an exclusive license to refine the low-grade ore. So the context calls for a colon, and D is the best option. Now, let's learn about the second usage of colons. Colons can be used as either a level 1 or 2 punctuation when they connect two pieces where the second piece directly explains or elaborates upon the content in the first piece. For example, she skipped breakfast. She was running 20 minutes late for her interview. The second piece directly explains why she skipped breakfast, so you should connect the two pieces with a colon. On the other hand, she skipped breakfast, the toaster was silver, is not okay to connect with a colon because now the second piece does not directly explain or substantially elaborate upon the first clause. The ancient civilization collapsed. A prolonged drought destroyed their primary water source. Why did the civilization collapse? Because there was a prolonged drought. So the second piece directly explains the first, so you can connect them with colons. But for the second one, you can't connect the two with colons because the first piece is not being directly explained by the second. So if you can ask who, what, when, where, why, how to the first piece and the second piece directly answers it, then a colon can be appropriate. You can look at a few more examples here. Now we're going to look at a few problems. Please don't solve it as a colon problem. Imagine as if you don't have any context. There's no adverb and no non-essential clause that sits next to the blank directly, so this is a leveling problem. The first piece is from the Antikythera to purpose. The second piece is from its interlocking to ears in advance. The first piece is independent, the second piece is also independent, so we need a level 1 plus 1 equals to a level 2 punctuation. From this, we can narrow down the correct option to either A, a semicolon, or C, a colon. And now we need to check whether the context specifically calls for a colon. The first piece talks about how the Antikythera mechanism had a remarkable purpose, and the second piece answers what remarkable purpose that mechanism had. Its interlocking gears could predict the positions of the sun and moon and forecast eclipses. So the second piece directly explains the first, and hence a colon is a better option. That makes C the correct answer. This problem also doesn't have an adverb or a non-essential clause next to the blank, so we solve it as a leveling problem. Now the first piece is from his solution to audacious, and the second piece is from he laid to beneath it. Both pieces are independent, so we need a level 1 plus 1 equals to a level 2 punctuation. Now we can narrow down the correct answer to either C or D, and now we ask, does the context specifically call for a colon? The first piece shows that his solution was ingenious and audacious, and the second piece shows how his solution was ingenious and audacious. So the second piece directly explains the first piece, and therefore we can use a colon, and so C is the correct answer. Now we're going to look at some edge cases. What does it exactly mean for the second piece to directly explain the first piece? How direct is direct enough? Well, we'll look at some examples to figure that out. He finally understood the problem. He had been solving the wrong equation. Here, the second piece is directly explaining what problem he understood so a colon can work. He had been solving the wrong equation, she had been solving the right one. Here, the second piece does add detail that's relevant to the first, but it doesn't directly explain the first enough. So a semicolon, period, or fanboys plus comma should go instead. She offered one explanation, the equipment had malfunctioned. The second piece is directly explaining the first, so here we can place a colon. She offered an explanation, nobody believed her. Although these two actions are in sequence and are in the same context, the second doesn't directly explain the first, so a semicolon, period, or comma plus fanboys would work better. Now pause the video and try these tricky cases yourself. The best way to determine whether a colon is appropriate is to ask the who, what, when, where, why, how to the first piece and to check whether the second piece answers that question. For example, what decision did the committee reach? They decided to table the proposal. So the second piece answers the first piece, so a colon is appropriate. Who are the three candidates that remained? A former senator, a tech executive, and a civil rights attorney. So this works as well. The storm intensified overnight. Why did it intensify? The second piece doesn't answer that. How did it intensify? The second piece also doesn't answer that. So here a colon wouldn't work. Now let's solve these two problems together and call it a day. There's no adverb and no non-essential clause next to the blank, so we solve this like a leveling problem. The first piece is from the Nile to Mediterranean. The second piece is from the Amazon to combined. Now the first piece is independent and the second piece is also independent, so we're looking for a level 1 plus 1 equals to a level 2 punctuation. We go through the options and we narrow it down to either B or C. Now we ask, does the context specifically call for a colon? Does the second piece directly explain the first piece? Well, it doesn't. Therefore, we need to place a semicolon. For problem 2, I'll assume that you've already completed the steps for leveling and that you've narrowed down the correct option to either A or D. From here, we need to ask, does the engineer's expectation that this probe will no longer work explain why or how the instruments return faint signals? It doesn't. So a colon doesn't work and therefore D is the correct option. If you have to remember just 3 things for this lesson, please remember that number 1, a colon can be used to introduce a list or an object. Number 2, a colon can be used to introduce a piece which explains the previous piece. 3, a colon problem looks just like a leveling or a non-essential clause problem. So when you have a colon in the options, you have to check whether the context specifically calls for a colon. If it does, then you override the strategy and choose the colon. If it doesn't, then you follow the strategy all the way through. Again, notes and practice problems for this lesson are on penguinprep.com, link in the description below. In the next video, we'll cover more tricky cases for colons. I'll see you then!